Say these 4 truths every morning to change your life. Before the world wakes up, before the noise begins, there is a moment. A quiet space between dreams and reality. A moment where you are not your name, not your role, not your past, but pure awareness. In that space, you have a choice to repeat the cycle of yesterday or to meet yourself with intention and plant the seeds of a new mindset. Each morning is not just the start of a day. It is the doorway to who you are becoming. And the words you speak to yourself in that silence, they become your foundation. So before anything else, speak these 4 truths to yourself. Let them shape your day. Let them guide your actions. Let them become who you are. I am here, and that is enough. This sentence seems simple, yet it holds a depth that most people spend years chasing in silence. In a world that constantly tells you to become more, do more, have more, achieve more, this truth stands still like a mountain amidst the storm, not as an excuse to remain idle, but as an anchor when you are being pulled in every direction by expectations, comparisons, and deadlines. To say I am here and that is enough is to remember that your existence does not need to be justified. You are not a machine built for output. You are a living being, a mind, a breath, a soul. Before the achievements, before the failures, before any identity was layered on you by society, you were here, breathing, alive, present. And that in itself was enough. This does not mean you should stop growing. Growth is natural. It is part of being alive. But there is a vast difference between growing because you love yourself and growing because you believe you're not enough yet. The first is peaceful and lasting. The second is stressful and never ending. It's the difference between nourishing a flower and yelling at it to bloom faster. When you begin your day with the reminder that you are enough, right now you remove the toxic weight of constant self-rejection. You allow yourself to operate from grounded self-acceptance, not perfection but presence. And from that presence, your thoughts begin to slow. Your breath becomes deeper. You stop fighting with your reality, and instead, you meet it with grace. Most people are haunted by a whisper they don't even realize they're listening to. You should be further by now. You're not doing enough. You are falling behind. That whisper, repeated day after day, becomes a belief, and beliefs become your identity. But what if instead, every morning you whispered this: you are here, and that is enough? Over time, your nervous system begins to relax. The fight or flight response softens. You stop running from yourself. Being enough doesn't mean you've reached some perfect destination. It means you no longer measure your worth by comparison. It means your value is no longer tied to what you can prove. It means your presence alone is sacred and you don't need to perform to earn it. This also allows you to show up more fully for others. When you don't need to impress, you become real. When you're not chasing approval, you can give freely. And when you no longer doubt your place in the world, you can begin to contribute to it from a place of truth. You move from fear to flow. It's easy to fall into the illusion that you are only as good as your results, but results are fleeting. They come and go. One day you're celebrated, the next day forgotten. If your worth is attached to those waves, you will never feel still. That's why you need something deeper to root into, something that can't be taken away. That something is presence. Presence doesn't ask, what have you accomplished today? It simply says, you are here, you are breathing, you exist, and that is enough to begin. Imagine if you treated yourself the way you treat someone you love deeply. Would you constantly remind them of what they lack? Would you say They aren't worthy unless they outperform everyone else. Or would you look at them and simply feel grateful that they're here at all? You can give that same love to yourself every morning before the world adds noise. In that first moment when your eyes open, you have the power to plant a seed, a reminder, a truth, not based on ego, but on essence. You may have goals to reach, deadlines to meet, and people to care for, but none of those things are reasons for your worth. They are just expressions of the life moving through you. You are not a task list. You are not your income. You are not the number on a scale or the number of likes on a screen. You are the stillness underneath all of it. When you truly accept that you are enough, you become unstoppable, not because you're trying harder, but because you stopped getting in your own way. Self-doubt is heavy. Self-judgment slows you down, but self-acceptance clears the path. It doesn't make things easier, but it makes you stronger, lighter, and more centered. This phrase is not just a sentence. It is a declaration, a daily practice, a rebellion against the lie that says you must constantly prove your worth to exist. You don't. So say it again, softly, fully. I am here, and that is enough. Let it settle in your chest. Let it echo in your breath. Let it replace the inner critic with the inner guide. You are allowed to want more, but never from a place of feeling less. You are allowed to change, but not because you hate yourself. You change because you are already enough, and you want to evolve into even more of that truth. Everything begins with presence, not someday, not when you succeed, not when you fix yourself, but now, this moment. You are here, and that is enough. Today I will respond, not react. This single line can shift the entire course of a day. Not because it changes your environment, but because it changes you, the way you move through moments, the way you speak, the way you perceive what happens around you. It is not just a phrase of control, it is a path to inner freedom. Most people spend their lives in a cycle of reaction. Someone says something hurtful, and the instinct is to strike back. A plan doesn't go as expected, and frustration rises like fire. The smallest inconveniences, traffic, a delayed message, a missed opportunity, trigger waves of internal chaos. Why? Because the mind is used to living in defense, trained to protect, conditioned to fight. It believes every disruption is a threat, and every threat must be answered immediately. That is the root of reaction, the inability to pause. But when you begin your morning by saying, "Today I will respond, not react," you are programming yourself to choose awareness over impulse. Reaction is fast, unconscious, and emotional. Response is still, measured, and deliberate. You are not denying your emotions. You are choosing not to let them drive your actions without awareness. That is power. Life will not adjust itself for your peace. People will still be rude. Circumstances will still shift unexpectedly. You cannot control what the world throws at you, but you can always control how you meet it. That is what makes this phrase so transformative. It brings responsibility back to you, not as a burden, but as a tool. Reaction is easy. It is the default mode of survival. But survival is not the goal. You are not here just to make it through the day. You are here to live, to grow, to become. And that requires training the mind to see clearly, even when emotions pull you in every direction. Imagine a storm. If you are caught in it without shelter, you panic. You run. You act without thought. That's what emotional reaction feels like. A storm you think you must escape. But now imagine standing in that same storm under a strong roof. You can hear the rain. You can feel the wind, but you are not being pulled by it. That is the difference between reacting and responding. The storm is still there, but you are steady. Emotional discipline is not about suppressing what you feel. It is about creating a space between what happens and what you choose to do next. That space is everything. In that space, you remember who you are. In that space, you take a breath instead of shouting. You listen instead of assuming. You walk away instead of escalating. And from that space, your decisions are no longer echoes of your wounds. They become signals of your strength. You might think this kind of self-control is unnatural, that if you feel something, you should express it. But expression without consciousness becomes chaos. You can express what you feel, but in a way that builds bridges, not burns them. You can speak your truth, but with clarity, not venom. You can defend yourself, but with grace, not rage. That is what a response looks like. It is not a weakness, it is mastery. Saying today I will respond, not react, does not mean you won't be challenged. In fact, the day may test you even more. But those tests are not there to break you. They are invitations. Invitations to practice stillness in movement, peace in pressure. Each challenge becomes a mirror. Will you fall into the old patterns of anger, blame, and fear? Or will you stand, breathe, and choose something higher? Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Not silence from suppression, but silence from wisdom. There are moments when walking away is strength, not cowardice. When choosing not to reply is clarity, not defeat. When holding your tongue is not a weakness, but wisdom, because not everything needs your energy. Not every battle deserves your involvement. You don't always have to explain yourself. You don't always have to fight to be right. What matters more than being right is being aligned with your values, your peace, your truth. And when you respond, instead of reacting, you stay in that alignment. You protect your energy. You choose your battles. You speak when your voice can create peace, not just noise. This doesn't mean you never get angry. It means your anger becomes focused, constructive. You stop being consumed by it, and instead you use it as a signal, a guidepost showing where healing or boundaries are needed. Emotions are not the enemy. They are messengers, but you must listen to the message, not just ride the wave. So when something happens today, anything that triggers you, pause. That pause is sacred. In that pause, ask, what do I want to create right now? Will this response help or harm? Am I acting from fear or from clarity? The person who masters this pause begins to master their life. Because reactions create regret, responses create results. Every time you respond consciously, you are not just choosing a better action, you are becoming a better version of yourself. Let this be your quiet commitment every morning, not shouted, not forced, but gently repeated until it becomes your nature. Today, I will respond, not react. Say it before the rush begins. Say it when you're stuck in traffic. Say it when someone disrespects you. Say it when fear rises or old patterns try to return. Say it until the space between impulse and action becomes wide enough for wisdom to live in. Say it until your mind no longer panics, but pauses. Say it until your energy is no longer scattered by emotion, but directed by intention. Because the world doesn't need more reaction. It needs more people who choose peace without weakness, who chooses clarity without coldness, who chooses truth with compassion. And that choice begins with you. Discomfort is not my enemy, it is my teacher. When those words sit in your heart, everything changes. You begin to see discomfort, not as something to avoid, but as a mirror, an invitation to deeper understanding, growth, and transformation. It is not a roadblock, but a guidepost pointing toward the limits you've created and the strength you've yet to access. Discomfort shows up in many forms. Maybe it's physical, the soreness in your muscles after a workout that whispers you're pushing into new territory. Or emotional, the sting of rejection, the ache of grief, the tension of uncertainty. Wherever it appears, discomfort is always a signal. It is the inner system's way of telling you that you are alive, that something important is unfolding. It is not cruelty, it is clarity. But because discomfort often feels unpleasant, the mind tries to hide, distract, or rush. We seek comfort because it feels safe, and for good reason. Survival instincts reward what's familiar. However, growth happens just outside comfort. Imagine a plant rooted in a pot, too small. It needs more space, more tension against its edges to know it must expand. You are the same. Tension is what provokes expansion. When you shift your relationship with discomfort, when you see it as a teacher, you stop resisting. You begin to lean in. Instead of shrinking from the tightness in your chest, when you face a challenge, you allow it to be there. You breathe into it. You feel it fully. What does it want to be seen? What is it teaching you about fear, desire, power, or boundaries? If you sit with it long enough, you find the lesson beneath the emotion. When you first recognize discomfort as a teacher, it is scary. It still triggers the reflex to escape. But each time you choose to stay, you build courage. Layer by layer, you create a tolerance for truth. You begin to ask different questions. Instead of why is this happening to me, you ask, what is this teaching me about myself? Instead of judging the situation as wrong, you observe the moment as data. You become a researcher of your own experience, and every discomfort becomes a lab for transformation. This doesn't mean you don't seek relief. That's human. But you learn to ask, is relief replacing a lesson? Or is it integrated into growth? You train yourself to pause before retreating. You learn to feel discomfort fully, connect its messages with your deeper intentions, and then choose how best to move forward. You respond rather than react. You learn rather than ignore. Through this practice, your relationship with both pain and pleasure transforms. You no longer chase pleasure blindly or worship ease. Instead, life becomes a teacher's classroom, rich with lessons. You begin to appreciate the whole spectrum, the ache of change, the hunger of longing, the edge of challenge. You realize you were never meant to float always on calm waters. You were meant to learn to sail. Consider the times you have grown the most. Perhaps it was in the silence after heartbreak, or you will move through your life. In those quiet moments before the noise begins, before the world places its demands on you, you meet the most important voice you will ever hear, your own. And how you speak to yourself in those first few moments becomes the soil in which your mindset takes root. This is not about surface-level affirmations or repeating empty phrases. It's about truth, deep, honest self-communication. What you tell yourself in the morning sets the tone for how your nervous system responds to stress, how your mind filters information, and how your body holds energy. If the first thing you say is "I'm already behind," your body tightens, your breath shortens, you move with anxiety, not intention. But if you begin with "I am grounded and I will move with purpose today," you start from clarity, you start from choice. Every single day, your inner dialogue chisels away at your identity. Think of it like water dripping on stone. At first, it's subtle, but over time, it creates patterns, grooves, definitions. And once enough repetition occurs, that pattern becomes who you believe you are. If you tell yourself each morning that you are lazy, or unworthy or not ready yet, you begin to live from that script. Not because it's true, but because you've made it familiar. The brain is always listening. It doesn't question whether your self-talk is accurate. It simply records and obeys. It repeats what it hears most. And the more familiar a thought becomes, the more automatic it becomes. That's how identity is formed. Not by external labels, but by internal repetition. Not by what others say, but by what you say to yourself when no one is listening. Morning is the most powerful time to shape that dialogue because the mind is most suggestible. Your subconscious is still open, still quiet. You have not yet been shaped by emails, notifications, and noise. You are raw, present, vulnerable in the best way. Whatever you plant in that space will take root with more depth than at any other point in the day. And it is in that space where the old stories either die or are reinforced. The story that you are not good enough. The story that you need to prove your value. The story is that success must be hard and painful. These stories don't have to remain with you, but they will if you keep repeating them in your thoughts. But if instead you choose to rewrite those stories one morning at a time, everything begins to shift. Maybe on the first day, it feels unnatural. You speak gently to yourself and your inner critic laughs. Maybe on the second day, doubt creeps in. That's okay, because repetition, not perfection, creates change. With enough practice, your self-talk begins to feel true, and once it feels true, it becomes your new foundation. You might not notice the change at first. It won't be dramatic, but over time you'll catch yourself showing up differently. Where you once hesitated, you now speak. Where you once doubted, you now trust. Where you once apologized for your presence, you now stand tall. This doesn't mean you'll never have negative thoughts again. It means you won't be controlled by them because you'll have trained yourself to respond with awareness. You'll know when a thought is just noise, not truth, and you'll return to your morning script, the one you built with intention, the one that reflects your highest self. Your decisions begin to reflect your identity, and your identity is shaped by what you say to yourself repeatedly. That is why morning self-talk matters so deeply. It is not about hyping yourself up. It is about aligning with your truth before the world tries to define you. You might think it's not enough just saying a few words to yourself in the morning, but consider this. Some people live their entire lives repeating one sentence in their mind: I'm not good enough. And that single line becomes the lens through which they see relationships, opportunities, and themselves. So yes, one sentence spoken with emotion and repetition is enough to shape an entire life. Now imagine replacing that line with a new one. I trust myself, or I move with purpose, or I am enough exactly as I am, and I choose to grow. Say that every day, not once, but with belief, with breath, with presence. You will start to become the person who lives from that truth. Your morning words become your inner climate. If the climate is harsh, your confidence withers. If it's nurturing, your courage grows. And just like a seed only blooms in the right conditions, your potential only blossoms under the right inner dialogue. This is not magic. It's not fantasy. It's repetition. It's a conscious effort. It's reclaiming the most powerful part of your day, the beginning, and filling it with words that support, guide, and align you. Morning self-talk isn't just a habit. It's a ceremony, a daily return to self, a silent shaping of who you are becoming, not who you were yesterday, but who you choose to be now. So speak to yourself with intention, speak with truth, speak with presence, because what you say in the quiet of the morning becomes the voice that echoes through your entire life. In the quiet stillness of the morning, before the world lays its hands on you, there is a sacred space, a moment that belongs only to you. And what you choose to do with that moment defines far more than the next few hours. It defines who you are becoming. When you tell yourself, I am here, and that is enough, you affirm your worth without condition. When you remind yourself, today I will respond, not react, you reclaim your power from impulse and plant it in awareness. When you lean into discomfort as a teacher rather than an enemy, you stop running and start rising. And when you say, I do not chase, I attract through alignment, you surrender control and replace it with trust, allowing your life to flow with purpose rather than pressure. Each of these truths, repeated with sincerity, does more than shape your day. They shape your identity. Over time, they rewire your thoughts, guide your emotions, and inform your actions. This is not a quick fix or a motivational trick. It is a quiet discipline, a daily practice of aligning who you are with who you choose to become. You are not your past reactions. You are not your temporary doubts. You are not defined by your fears or your circumstances. You are shaped by what you believe and what you repeat, especially when no one is watching. So tomorrow morning, before the noise, return to this space. Speak with presence. Choose your words with care, because you are always listening, and what you say becomes who you are.